And something that has really, really helped me, but this is so silly, but I will tell you because it has helped me. One of the things I have done through my journey is really getting to know the worst version of me.
Yeah.
I have zero interest, and I tell my leaders all the time, I do not care what your leadership looks like in a great day because those don't exist.
Hmm.
Leadership exists when you have had way too much coffee, you haven't slept, you are exhausted, you're being asked to do certain deadlines, and you're up to.
Welcome to the Heart Aligned brand. I'm your host, Leanne, brand strategist, photographer, and mentor with over 5 years experience helping women and queer-owned businesses build brands rooted in their truth. This is a space for thoughtful conversations about building a business that actually supports your life, where strategy meets self-trust and success doesn't require self-abandonment. Hi, Nayli. Yay! Thank you so much for being here. I am really excited to chat with you today about your business. I would love for you to take a moment to tell me and everyone listening a little bit about yourself and how that has shaped the business that you have.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. My name is Nayli Russo. I am a leadership strategist. I focus specifically on leadership under pressure. And the reason why I do that is because I am originally from Venezuela. I'm an immigrant. And, as an immigrant, I had to learn very quickly how to navigate systems that were not built for me, how to have that level of resiliency to just not give up and keep going. And I found out pretty quickly how much difficult it is for a woman of color or for an immigrant to navigate corporate leadership roles. And I was very lucky to be successful at it. And in my journey, I started to think about how we can help and support those that are coming through those ranks and that are actually finding their footing. And I ended up building my company, which is called Russo Leadership. And it's all about developing leaders and creating systems that allow for those leaders to be noticed and to gain the access that they need.
Just for context, how long have you been in business?
I have been doing, like Russo Leadership per se, this is going to be as a full time for me, my second year. But prior to me leaving my corporate job, I was doing this on the side at first with some, different angles. I was testing the market, testing what I liked and what felt aligned for me. Then I ended up 3 years ago. I ended up doing contracted work for the company I was with, meaning I ended up resigning and just being a retainer for them to continue my work. And then this is my second year now as a purely consulting firm on my own.
So you mentioned as you were describing, you were kind of testing the market and testing different ways of doing what you do. Tell me a little bit more about that process and how you landed on what felt right. And also know it's still something that's evolving for you.
Yeah. No, that's, it's very interesting because I started my company on the side. I had my job. I used to work for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I was one of the executives there and I was given human resources. And in that role, I started to notice, there is a gap on how much access we're given to women,
Mhm.
specifically the way in which we are perhaps not creating systems that allow for them to go up. And so I started doing a lot of work on women empowerment. I thought that was kind of my angle. I was like, I really want to do this because I want women to feel empowered, to show up as they are, being fully confident in their skills. And I thought I was doing this work, that it was a confidence issue.
Mhm.
And little did I know, of course, it wasn't. So when I started doing it on the side, focusing on a lot of like B2C, business to consumer, and I wasn't getting traction. I was getting a lot of, interest on people wanting to hear from me, wanting to know about my journey, but I wasn't really getting a lot of sales per se.
Mhm.
And as I was doing the work and I started speaking in these conferences, I started getting invited to do a lot of these things. I did a couple of workshops, quickly realized that by accident, I was blaming the victim, meaning
Mhm.
I was trying to teach women leadership when in fact everybody needs leadership. Like if I
Mhm.
wanted to make a change for women in the workplace, I need to be influential in the system itself.
Mhm.
And so I started to say, okay, if I want to truly make a difference, B2B has to be my vehicle and my venue because two things. One, the companies will be paying for the services. And second, I need to gain access to the people who needs this work the most. And interestingly enough, it's not the women. It's better to bring these programs holistically to a company where now you can embed all of these trainings, all of these very intricate ways of thinking, of understanding how we show up, how we drive the workplace, how can we be better leaders. And it cannot just be about women. It has to be about the entire system shifting and changing. And so I ended up moving to a B2B space where now I target companies and companies who are interested in truly teaching leadership, not just I'm going to check the box. We do a lot of in-depth work about the human, their identity, their styles, how that impacts the work, how their style gets interpreted differently in a bias system versus not. And so it's very aligned for me now to know that I can still fulfill my mission, which is to help women advance, but I can do it in the way where the market has the money while still changing the system.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're tapping into one of the key components when it comes to building a brand and a business that is aligned with who you are, but also being smart about how you do it and strategic when talking about finding that magic spot zone is you have what you want to offer, but you also have to have the client who's willing to pay for it. And this is where so many of us struggle because we get really locked into this idea of where it's like, that's how I'm going to do it. And then we leave the money on the table, one. And then what we end up doing is we burn ourselves out because we're chasing down this idea of how we're going to do it. And we end up not making the impact that we want to make because we're
Without a
not
doubt.
right. We're not getting the clients that resonate with this mission.
Yeah.
So what I really like about what you were saying is that you're still doing the work, right? It's just you're doing it in a different way. And it's kind of fun because the way that I think about it when I'm talking with my clients is it's like the Trojan horse. You sell them what they want and you give them what they need. And you're like, I'm going to give you the leadership. But actually what you're doing is systematically changing the way people approach leadership.
Without a doubt. And I think that has been the biggest shift for me is to understand the constraints and to work around them instead of feeling like I have no way to do this. You know, it will be very easy for me to be, I remember when I did this the first time I set up a program, I sold zero. And I was like, my God, like, is it me? Am I a failure? Because we love to do that, right? All of a sudden, I'm like all over my head.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a minute. No, there is something here I'm missing. Like there is this, because in my head, I was like, there is this need. Why are people not buying it? And then I was like, oh, it's because of course people think my company should be training me on this. I shouldn't have to be doing this when they're the ones that are putting me in these positions. And then I also felt like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. Like I can be more influential and more impactful if I can go to these companies. Now, one thing, Leanne, I will tell you is that I would not betray myself for a contract, meaning I still stand very firm in the fact that my work will focus on biases. It will talk about different systems and different styles and navigating power and what that looks like for women, what that does look like for men, for people of color. Because let's be very honest, men are also subject to stereotypes and they're also subject to different expectations or expectations that are completely wrong still in the workplace. And that to me is consistent with me and my style and these people who are willing to go deeper into this work. And that is the line that I will continuously hold, even if how I package it changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what you're saying to me kind of resonates with this other idea that I really harp on, which is your values and it's your North Star, right? It's the compass that keeps you focused. It's like this is the root or the foundation of everything that I'm doing. And by sort of standing in that truth and letting that be the litmus test or like, we will not pass go if this is not in alignment, it does two things. One, it attracts the right type of people and it repels the people who just aren't going to get it, making it way much better way much better. way, way better for you and them, right?
Yes.
Because they're going to get more out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
I really love that. I'd really love to kind of just talk about, we've been talking about this evolution. I want to go back a little bit to that initial first stage. So we worked together when you were first moving in, and I want to talk about like your personal kind of like transition from where you were to where you are now. We've worked together many times throughout this iteration, how it's changed, but also how it still honors you throughout that journey. Because I think one of the key things that I try to talk about all the time is that our authenticity and our brand, it's a journey, it's an evolution, and we're constantly pulling back those layers to like figure out what feels most aligned for us. But in that evolution, it doesn't mean that that version of us that we thought we were or felt the most true to us at that time wasn't a genuine expression of us. So take me through it just a little bit, because you've touched on how it's shifted over the at least 3 years.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that all of those versions of us are still authentic expressions at that point in time, right? It's like any sort of leadership is contextual, it's dependent on where you are in your life, is, very, very much in alignment with however that moment in time is feeling and what's happening and whatever, to your point, what are you unearthing? And I think when we started our work together, like I had never had to think about the physical expression of my brand, right? Like that external visibility to it. I never had to like really think about it. And so at that time, if you think about it, where I was at was feeling very constrained in a male dominated industry, right? I was in sports, probably one of the few executives at the top, where perhaps this, and you see this in corporate America as well, being extra feminine gets maybe viewed differently, right? And I felt at that moment in time that I just wanted to fully own my power. Like I felt that I had given up my power to a system and I hated it. I hated every minute of it. And I felt that I had betrayed my own self. And so when we did our first photo shoot, all I wanted was for those pictures to convey the power I felt inside that I had kept at bay for a long, long time, right? And every choice, right? Even the way I was thinking about our colors and everything that we do was very much that. And that's what came through the camera and through the pictures and through all of that. And once I did that, and once you do this thing, this is why I think you just have to go through it and accept it. You kind of see something visually. And then I felt so accepted. I was like, yes, like I can be powerful and I can be strong and nobody can take that away from me. It doesn't matter what they try to do, right? And even for me right now, my whole branding is undeniable leadership. Nobody can deny you access unless you let them. Nobody can deny you being a leader. Leadership is about choice. It's about choosing the impact that you make and having responsibility for it. And so at that time, when I saw that, I was like, I love this. Then a year later, I was like, okay, I no longer need to prove my power to anyone.
Yeah.
Now I want the softer version of me, the version of me who also exists within self. And I think that's what sometimes, we don't realize. Like all of these versions of me exist. There is a version of me who is soft, who loves pink, who loves just like the calm. There is a version of me who just wants to wear black and be, intense. There is a version of me who loves red and like wants to be sexy. All of those versions are authentic expressions of me at a different point in time.
Yeah.
And so we did our second photo shoot because at that point, I wanted my brand to be accessible. I wanted to have images that demonstrated that I can also be compassionate and strong. Not just strong all the time, but also compassionate and caring, and that coach that would listen and that will be there for you. But by the way, I will push you when I need to push you. And that's kind of like where it was. And then now I've come full circle because now I feel that I'm in that balance of those both worlds where I have accepted the full expression of those brands. And I feel they both represent me. And now I can choose each one at the right time when I need to. So I'm very much in this space now where I love having been able to tap into both of them, see them externally manifested, and then picking and choosing when I want to use them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things that I've seen you do with the work that we've done together so well is to see that both of those iterations are true to you and you've been able to use them in your content, in your marketing, in your branding, weave them fluidly together to be a representation of all these different aspects because it is true. Like there's moments where I'll see you talking about like owning your power, being more confident, and you'll post one of our more like confident, very like awesome photos. And then there's other times where you're posting something that's more soft, and both of them are representations of you.
Mhm.
And that I love. So, talking about how your brand has evolved and kind of figuring out how to make decisions in your business, how do you handle when you feel there's something misaligned or isn't working for
Well, first of all, I just get curious. I used to judge myself. I felt like things were supposed to be easy. Like, well, if I should have all this figured out because somebody else already has it figured out, and this stupid comparison, you know?
you?
About a year ago, when I started like actually now doing this on my own, I set up some goals. And then I realized, like, first of all, I need to just do what I preach because I coach people and leaders on this.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then I started saying, okay, can I, instead of when these thoughts come to my mind, like this feels wrong or this is misaligned or just this isn't how I expected it to go, right? It's more that expectation. I used to beat myself over. Now I just get curious. Okay, what's happening? This is data. What's happening? What's the misalignment? Why am I feeling this way? Is it contradicting where I want to go? Is it something that's maybe pushing me to grow and I don't want to grow yet? Is it because I feel imposter syndrome? Maybe I'm feeling a little incompetent, right? Like that's okay. Now I have more acceptance. And something that has really, really helped me, but this is so silly, but I will tell you because it has helped me. One of the things I have done through my journey is really getting to know the worst version of me.
Yeah.
I have zero interest, and I tell my leaders all the time, I do not care what your leadership looks like in a great day because those don't exist. Leadership exists when you have had way too much coffee, you haven't slept, you are exhausted, you're being asked to do certain deadlines, and you're up to here. That's the person I want to know because that's the person we got to manage, right? We're not going to manage the beautiful, perfect version of me.
Yeah.
And so what I have noticed and learned quickly is that at my worst, I am lazy.
I love it. I'm so glad that you're saying this because it like aren't we all a little bit, right?
Oh no, I am like the laziest human being. Like I always tell people, I'm lazy with ambition. And so I am so lazy that I used to make decisions based on what I thought I could do. And so that misalignment often was because the piece of me that just didn't want to do that to begin with was in fight with like the one who thinks, well, I should do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And now from everything, I sit down and say, okay, is this something I can actually do? Is this something that realistically I will be happy doing? Why am I feeling this way? Am I just being lazy right now? Right? And if I am, is it okay or is it not? And so now a lot of my decisions, Leanne, look very different than they did before because I'm no longer optimizing for the best version of me. I'm optimizing for the worst version of me and helping her get better. And that has been so, so transformational. I'll give you an example of something so stupid. So I just moved to this building here. Like I rented an office in downtown in PPG.
It looks so nice, by the
Thank you.
way.
Thank you. And this is silly, but I was going to get a lease for my car, right? Well, parking here in the garage is like $340. I could have parked 2 blocks and it would have been like $250. Now, when you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking about all that stuff, right? Like, I got to save money here. I got to save money there. I talked to my husband and I was like, listen, old version of me would have saved the money, moved 2 blocks away. It's not a big deal. It's not a long walk. Male version of me knows that once the motivation passes, my lazy ass will not want to walk the 2 blocks. And I'm going to find every excuse not to go to the office. And then we're going to feel we're wasting money. Why did I rent an office? I'm going to get all guilty. I'm going to feel bad about myself, how I'm so unreliable and irresponsible. And here comes the whole spiral. And I sat with him and I said, I'm budgeting for the 340 for my own mental health and for the fact that I know this is what will be the right thing for me. Easiest decision of my life.
I love that. I think this is something you're hitting on, this really, really important piece of the puzzle, which is when you are in business for yourself, you are going to face yourself in so many ways that you never imagined you would before, because growth in your business only happens when you're able to grow internally. Unless you're someone who's out there just like gives no fucks and is doing business in all the wrong ways, right? And we're not in that business. We're not in that game. And I love that you run through this like self-reflective, these honest questions, right? Because I think another trap that people fall into is that if it doesn't feel easy, it's not right or it's not aligned, right? And so you're checking in with yourself and you're saying, wait. I'm feeling resistance here. Is the resistance because it's not in alignment, or is the resistance because there's a piece of me that I need to work on and need some help, need some love to be able to expand into this?
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. I also think that making that decision to go with the more expensive garage was an aligned decision, right? Because
1,000%.
it's supporting the best version of yourself, right? You are seeing where you know you're going to trip up and you're like, no, we're not going to let that be an excuse.
Yeah.
This is me saying I'm going to hold myself accountable. And by doing this, I'm making a decision that feels right, even if it's going to take a little extra money.
Absolutely. It was me knowing that you cannot make a decision thinking only on the today. Like, that's just my thing, right? Like, yeah, of course I'm excited for a new office. Think about 6 months. Think about the dead of winter right now, which is 2 degrees. Am I going to make that walk, or will I have stayed in my house? Right?
Yeah.
You got to think about all of that. And then the decision, it's way easier and much more aligned, without a doubt.
Yeah. I love that.
And by the way, it has to be aligned to me, not to anybody else, right? Because anybody who I talk to, like even my husband will be like, that's a quick walk. I'm like, for you, it's a quick walk. You don't wear heels. You don't have to worry about it. Like, no.
I just to tap back into this idea of like the worst version of yourself, which resonates with this idea of like we're becoming the best version of ourselves, but like words, let's go here. It really stands out to me because there is a famous like personal growth person, someone, I can't remember who said it, but what they said was all of these self-care, personal development, meditation practices, right? All of these mindset practices that we're doing are just that, they're practice. Because the tests are in the moments when everything fucking sucks and you're figuring out, did all that practice do anything?
Correct. Yes.
It's so painful. And being in business, it's like super accelerating these tests where it's like, is the practice making me a better person? Am I choosing those better things for myself?
You cannot find the best version of yourself if you don't know the worst version of you. Just simply can't. You're going to keep just masquerading and you're going to keep pretending. And guess what? When pressure hits, pressure constricts choices. Now you have no choices. You don't know what's going to come out. And then we end up where we end up. And so I think for the longest time, I just would optimize for this pretend version of me that I was like, this is the person I want people to know I am. And I would keep this charade, just for show. And then now I'm like, no, I don't care for that. That's not, I'm okay saying, no, I'm actually lazy. And that's why I don't do it that way. And you know what? That's a great strategy for you and good for you, but it's not going to work for me. That's fine.
If you want that, good for you. Not me.
I am not. And I'll tell you this, I do this with my leaders. I said, take everything with a grain of salt. test that for yourself. It has to work for you. Anybody who comes to train you and tell you that their way is the way, kick them out of the curve.
Yep.
Because it's not. You have to try. They are best practices, of course. There are things that will work, but they have to work for you. And that's like, to me, the line of like, and that became very apparent as an entrepreneur because I don't have anybody else to blame anymore. I can say my boss didn't let me, so and so, blah, blah, blah. I'm my own mountain.
Yep. Yeah. I love everything you're saying. It is my favorite, most honest piece of business ownership that I wish more of us talked about, because there's too many people out there, like the ones who started 10 years ago or 15 years ago when the internet was starting to boom and it was like, blah, all of this. They're telling you, just get out there, just do it this way, just do it that way. And there's not enough conversation about what has to happen internally to be able to get into that space.
Without a doubt. Oh, to sustain it.
Yeah.
Because you can get into the space and then.
Exactly.
It's hard. It's not easy.
No.
It's not easy.
No. So let's talk a little bit about boundaries, choices, and trade-offs. So staying within the tangent of what we've been talking about, let's push this into boundaries, choices, or trade-offs, right? Because we all have to make those in our business at some point. So what's one recent example that you could give us where you've made a decision to stay true to yourself, and what was the hardest part of navigating that for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest one for me, I'm going to give you the general and then I'll tell you how this shows up, is, scaling without compromising, without self-betraying, right? There's many things we can do to chase revenue and to generate revenue. And I refuse to do that the wrong way. And so I had, last year, I had a potential client. It was a potential very big contract for advisory work. And I remember talking to my husband and I said, the person who is hiring me or he wants to hire me, I think, and I know based on these conversations that this person wants to use me to justify their agenda upward. Okay. And I don't do that. I run a clean assessment. I take a look at what's needed and I make my recommendations, whether they want to hear them or not. And that is my line. And that's a boundary I had to set, right? Like I asked my husband, I said, do I do what many consultants do? They come in, they make a pretty deck, they do what, the person wants them to do, and then they walk away like nothing happened. And I remember telling him, like, that's not the reputation I want in the market. I'd rather my reputation be, Nayli will tell you as it is, do not bring her in unless you want to hear what you need to hear. That's the reputation I want. So that's the boundary and that's the trade-off. I will leave money on the table if it does not align with the reputation I want my company to have.
Yeah.
Simple. And it's very easy for me now. Very easy, And now, of course, you have to then think about the current impact of that. Where do I find more revenue? How do I do it? Like even this year, I do strategic planning for a lot of people. I've done it. That was my career. And I was doing my budget this year and I budget because I want to spend like if I had no growth.
Yeah.
That's just for me the responsible thing to do. I have my stretch goal. I will chase revenue, but I don't want to put myself in a predicament that now those choices are limited for me. I do not. So again, to that point of I am going to plan to make sure I can maintain my boundaries and to make sure that those trade-offs are clear and that they're aligned for me.
Yeah. One of the other components or something that stands out to me whenever I make decisions in a similar vein where I'm getting red flags from a client or I'm like, oh, there's something going on here that's like off. Every single time I've said yes to a client that I could tell that there were some red flags, and mine's not necessarily as like they're trying to advance in that really negative way, but it's more just like scope creep and like boundaries like that.
Yeah.
Every time I've said yes, the universe has in return been like, okay, we're going to give this test to you one more time. And I have always regretted it. And every time I say no, a more aligned client comes later on.
Yes. It opens the doors for you.
It does. And I think maintaining that perspective and staying true to yourself and holding in that space and the trust that, like, by staying true to this boundary, you are trusting that the right people are going to find you. It's so hard, but it's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. 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 No, and I also think it's like, again, like, what do you want to be known for?
Mhm.
Right? Do you want to be known as that person who, if you push her a little bit, she'll let you spend your scope and do all these things? Or like, do you want to be known for the person who does quality work? That's how I think about it. I'm
Yeah.
like, do I want to be known as the person who just, comes in and promise something and doesn't deliver? No, I don't.
Mhm.
So I'm
Mhm.
out, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. And you can find somebody else, right?
Yep.
I want to wrap up our conversation with advice that you have for anyone in business who is feeling like they're misaligned, they're struggling with their brand. What piece of advice would you give them right now?
So I think the first thing I would tell people is do not look at these things as failure, right?
Mhm.
I think sometimes we think that because we have discomfort, or maybe, we don't feel fully connected with our branding, with our services, with our whatever, we think we're failing.
Mhm.
And we're not. That's part of being in business.
Mhm.
Is testing, is trying new things, is, in at something from a different angle and see how it works. I've changed my brand how many times, Leanne? You know that better than
Yep.
anybody, right?
Yep.
Yes. Is there a little bit of procrastination branding there? For sure. Like, because branding is easier just to mess around with, just
Yeah.
so it keeps you protected.
Mhm.
However, every time I've done that, I have learned something about it. I have learned something about myself, something about my clients, what resonates, what doesn't resonate. And what I have come to realize too is that we need to look at these things as growth.
Mhm.
Sometimes we feel misaligned because we might have outgrew the person we were, the business that we were, the brand that we had. And that's why we need to lean into that discomfort. And I think that if you're feeling that disconnection, instead of saying I shouldn't feel this way, just radical acceptance.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm feeling disconnected. What is it? What am I seeing? Is it the colors? Is it the brand? Is it the services? Is it the clients that I have that are draining me? Is it the boundaries? Is it, I don't know. Like, I will tell you this, I was feeling so disconnected at the end of last year because it was my first year by myself. Now I was at home all the time. And it's so easy for us to solution for the wrong problem. We do this all the time. And I remember telling my husband, like, I'm feeling so isolated. And a lot of people in business that start their business on their own, they're like, oh, it's because I need to go back to work for somebody else because I can't do this by myself. And I was like, no, no, no. I'm not going to go work for anybody else because there's a reason why I did this. However, I will replicate some of the conditions of working for somebody else that really helps me. I'm going to get an office. I'm going to dress up every day. I'm going to come to my office. I'm going to have coffee and have my schedule. So sometimes we get so fixated there is only one path instead of getting curious. Am I
Mhm.
feeling isolated because, I didn't like this about corporate, but I did like these other things. I did
Mhm.
like the interaction with people. I did like dressing up. It changes how I feel. I'm going to lean into that. And so my advice is be curious, allow failure and welcome it, and then explore it and try something different.
I love that so much. Also, totally resonate with you about 9 to 5 perspective and dressing up. The first year of my business, I didn't realize that I was spending like all of my time in like sweat clothes and not getting dressed. And then one day I got dressed and my cousin came over and he goes, "Oh, wow, you look really nice. What's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, this is my sign."
Yes. Yes.
And
No.
I made the commitment. I was like, it doesn't matter if I'm home by myself. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to do my makeup. I'm going to act as if I'm going out in the world and someone is seeing me because that helps me. That sets my head space as we're here, we're doing our job, you know?
Yeah.
And for anyone who is willing to do that, who can stay in their sweats and do all that, no shame there. Good for
No.
you.
We love
Not
you.
just not very right. Love that for
I'm
you.
jealous.
Right.
Well, I couldn't even like, to say like how everybody's so different, right? Like I couldn't even do it because if I stay home, because I am more driven by like the external pressure than
Mhm.
by internal. And I have to know that about myself as well. You know what I mean? I would do
Mhm.
more because I think somebody's going to see me versus like, because I'm in the comfort of my home. And so I knew, I was like, I need to get the heck out of here, out
Yeah.
of this house. And even like my mom, my husband, everybody's like, your mood has improved significantly,
Aw.
because now it's like, oh, I get to see people and I get to interact. And it's
Mhm.
just this components of my identity that I just thought like, oh, well, that's not important, but they are important. And we sometimes are so all or nothing. Like,
Mhm.
well, I'm gonna work from home, so therefore I have to do it this way. Versus, like, actually, no, I can now. I own my business. That means I can set the conditions.
Mhm.
And even yesterday, you were mentioning something earlier, but yesterday I told somebody I was talking to, I said, I refuse to replicate the hassle of corporate with my own business now. I'm just not going to
Mhm.
do it. And I told my husband that. I said, if I have to grow this business by like grinding triple times what I did before, I'm not doing it because that's not the reason, my reason. For some people, that's the reason they're going to be aligned because the reason is just,
Mhm.
grabbing wealth or doing whatever. That's not mine.
Mhm.
Mine is so I can have a business that I feel fully aligned, that I love what I do, that I help people, and not but and gives me the freedom and the time to pick up my daughter, to see her when she drops off, to go to places with her, to travel to Europe during the summer. That to me is the key.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I love that you highlighted that you're like, I'm not replicating hustle because
Mm.
so many of us think that that's the way to success and it's not. And you and I, we are redefining that.
We are, and I love it. I love it.
I appreciate you so much for being here with me today, Nayli. For people who want to follow you, find you, participate, be a part of your world, where can they find you? I will link all of this in the show notes as well. Take it
I'm
away.
everywhere. I'm everywhere. LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active, of course. It's Nayli Russo. I also have my Instagram, and then my website is russoleadership.com. And so that's there for anybody who might want to go check it out. But if you want to see most of my thought leadership, it sits on LinkedIn for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I will direct people there. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.